Hi, I'm Adam Reynolds. I'm the sixth most annoying person in Bath. And one of these things, I've been doing cycle campaigning for 4 years. Didn't expect it to be part of my life, and part of that has been as a software engineer who also into data and science, doing the data sciencey stuff, and imaging, all that stuff. I've used my skills to develop quite interesting graphics that try and explain cycling and communicate that. And this is actually gone national. However, it is a journey that I'm on, and these days I'm more about active travel, placemaking, and looking into a city and how it functions, and how do we get it to function better, and how do we encourage it to be child-friendly, and how do we get it to become inviting as a space for walking and cycling. And a lot of that is very hard to do. There are, of course, trams. They're controversial to a certain extent. But when I look at a city now, I try and focus on the livability around walkability, bikeability, public space, and public transport. And one of the most important things is the pedestrian has to come first. We are focusing on creating a great space for being and living and being part of it. And other cities have been very good at achieving this. Pontevedra, I don't know if you've heard, you may have heard of it. It used a different technique where it allowed cars to come in so far, but then they had to go back out the way they came in. So it used a kind of looping effect, but it created a city centre, a heart of it, where it was a great place to walk and cycle and just be around, with good access for public transport. Nijmegen took a different approach. Yeah, they actually looked at it and said, we just want to keep those cars that shouldn't be in the city or city centre out. So residents are good at certain times of day, commercial vehicles are good, but, and of course public transport. But the point there is they tried it initially with science, and they didn't work. And so they actually achieved success when they started using physical barriers, using technology to actually change or deny access at certain times of day, and not in a way which ruins people's lives that are living inside that space. And so when you start looking at Bath, and this is a little bit of census data, it is the most walkable city for commuting in the country, in England and Wales. Yeah? If you look at it, 41%, it's quite exciting. We're not too good on cycling, but together, 47% of people, it's a bit of a cut off on the side. Yeah? You then get a city centre where, when you actually look at it, it's actually cut and sliced and diced by cars. Yeah? And this, for me, creates a problem of hostility around how you can get around. And it isn't necessary for these cars to be travelling through this space. Yeah? These are the through routes that you as a driver can potentially use. Yeah, you might get fined for using a couple of them, but you can use them. Yeah. And there is no reason for you to come into the south side to get to the north side and cut through. However, Google tells me that that's a great idea. And so I tried to rethink the city centre and say, look, could it be made what I call a living heart? And this area of the city, with designed like this, using barriers and using loops back from the Pontevedra, allows a city to basically say, you can come in if you need to. If you have a car and you need to come in, if you've got disability, you have commercial business, you can get in, but you cannot use it as a shortcut. Yeah? This rethinks the city centre in a very simple idea around, if you want to come in to the train station, you have to go down North Parade. Yeah, that's it. If you're coming from the north side, you can come down and park, but you can't go through the city itself. You have to work your way around it. And this is something that a lot of other cities are learning. But when you actually then say, well, okay, what about public transport? Public transport still gets its way through the city efficiently, using a network of gates, and as well as areas that they're allowed to use, and it allows, from losing it here a bit, let's carry on, allows for us to then reclaim areas of the city. So Queen Square can be reclaimed, the High Street can be reclaimed, Seven Dials, which is a horrendous shared space, can be reclaimed, the St. James Parade, as well as the Green Park Lane or Green Lane or whatever, Green Park Road, that can also be reclaimed. And it is this sort of thing that the Living Hub is about. Now I'm going to move on to our next idea, which is, we also, when we look at the heart of a city, because if we look at the walkability of the city, we have to actually start thinking about why is so much of the city congested. Why does it have real problems with people coming into the city? And one of the reasons why is you can get quite close to the city centre and have free parking. And that free parking enables you then to walk into the city centre. So what I'm proposing is that we actually put parking zones, a new type of parking zone, across the whole of the city. Free for residents where they live, but should they want to drive to another area of the city and park there for the day, then they would actually be paying for that privilege. And just like a commuter coming into the city who chose to move past the 2,800 car parking spaces in the Park and Ride and are suddenly filled up by 700 by 9 in the morning, that came in the city, they would actually get charged for using this idea of a soft residence parking zone. And it would cost more than your bus pass. And the reason why is that within a city you have choices. You have the ability to move around a city in multiple ways. If you're coming from the outside, once you hit a city, you have choices as to how you get around. Sometimes that's not possible. And then we move on to the third idea. Right, I tried to get buses. This is a Bristol bus with a rack on the front of it. The DVSA said no. And I started thinking about what can we do to buses to make them better as a public transport, as a solution for moving bikes. And then I took it a bit further and said, well, hang on a minute. If we can get the bikes on top of the roof, we can also put freight on the top of the roof as well. And this then allows us to create freight consolidation centres on the outskirts of the city centre, which are using the public buses as a way of delivering freight into the city centre. I've contacted first. I have no idea if they're going to go for it, but I think it's a good idea. So those are my 3 ideas. I've got 20 others. There's another slide set, but not here tonight.